The biggest difference between Republicans and Democrats
is.
Okay, so we ran into somebody at the coffee shop. It was really actually kind of an interesting conversation.
Yeah, enjoyed it a lot.
We were talking about our politics, policies, and our ideas on the Republican Party, and a few other different things.
Yeah, this and that.
Joe was Trump loving, and he wasn't. Not exactly, but he was talking about Trump, and because we're a part of the Republican Party. So
we're registered Republicans. We're not like in the party.
We're in the party, bro. If you're registered, you're in it. Anyway, we were talking about Trump because that's what Republicans talk about. That's all we ever talk about. Trump, how much we love him. So the guy next to us was not in that, and he never ever really actually even talks to people about Trump because he runs in a different circle. So he was really interested. He was so interested that he really needed to just talk to us.
Why do Republicans like Trump? He wanted to know because,
I mean, honestly, I wonder the same thing.
He was from the left side of the aisle. So he's a real nice guy, and we had a really good conversation. And it's the sort of thing sometimes you wish you were just sitting there with the recorder,
Yeah. The thing is, by the end of it, we're all sitting there realizing, there's more things that we have in common than we have difference.
That's right.
You would never know that if you only knew Trump and Hillary, because the differences those two have are pretty huge or passionate. Their differences maybe aren't as huge as even they know. It's hard to say.
Both got more money than I do. I know that.
Yeah. So that's the biggest difference. That's the tagline is what's the biggest difference between Republicans and Democrats. And I really feel like the biggest difference we have is who we believe is going to safely lead our country.
Right.
It's not that we totally 100% agree with all the policies of these people or their ideas. It's that we believe that they possibly could get us through the next 4 or 8 years.
Right. Set us on the right course for beyond that. But when we were talking with this gentleman, he would bring up a point and he'd ask a question and we would say, yeah, I totally agree with that, and blah, 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 blah. Here's what we think. And he's like, oh, okay. And then we would bring up a point, ask a question, and he would bring up something. And
this wasn't a conversion type conversation. No. It wasn't like we were convincing him to think the way. We didn't present some good argument that was like, oh, well, now I'm going to win over to. It wasn't at all like that.
Here's why we think this about that.
And he's like, okay, well, that's basically the same thing I think. Or we would say the same thing to him. Like he would tell us, well, this is why I believe this, and this is some things. And I would be like, yeah, that's what I think.
Good point, man.
So we're not in the business of converting people over to Republicans Party. We're definitely not. We believe people, if they have convictions, they have ideas, they need to hold fast to those ideas and be convicted about them. But what we are in the business of is realizing that you don't have an enemy on the other side.
I heard this one guy who's known as a liberal talking to another guy who's known as a conservative, and the liberal guy said, I don't really think that the opposite of a liberal is a conservative. And he's 100% true. Now, people talk about the founding fathers all the time in the United States, right? Whenever they're trying to evoke something. The founding fathers were very liberal for their time around certain views that are now considered conservative, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, liberalism and conservatism are not opposite things.
Yeah.
They are not.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're two different methods of getting to the same result. So, and sometimes they cross over more than not.
I think here's something that is different. We don't really deal with this a lot as much as we used to in America because we have, segregation has been, abolished and all these other types of things are being worked on, if not abolished. But there are some countries that are still fighting for freedom. Some places in South Africa are still fighting for their freedoms. Not as much. There has been a ton of progress in the last 30 years. But some places are still fighting for their freedom. So there's a difference between freedom and enslavement. Those would be opposites.
Absolutely.
And so if you live in a country like that, you might actually be fighting the opposite side. There might be an actual opposing person on the other side of your policies.
Right.
But here in America, we just don't have that. But we act like we have
in
that.
a lot of the Western countries.
But we act like we have that. We act
Right.
like the other guy is totally all about slavery of the
Right.
Republic, and nobody can make money. And, you know, sometimes the leaders act like that.
Everybody's being set up to be some sort of extremist.
Yeah.
And I think that's done to keep people divided and keep true progress from happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's being done to be able to guide and control it so that one central group can guide and control this conversation that's happening in the public sphere. And that is not to anyone who's being guided and controlled's interest.
Yeah. This guy was really cool. He said he had worked on a campaign for Nader, I think it was.
Yeah, Ralph Nader.
Which is really cool. I think I commend anybody who works on an actual campaign. I mean, that's really good service to your country, I believe.
Especially
working on
somebody
campaigns.
who's so one party or the other, like Ralph Nader was, you know?
Yeah.
That's cool, because that's an upward battle that you're going to fight.
Huge. And so that's a lot of work.
It's a battle
so
worth fighting, though.
it was really cool talking to him about that. But he mentioned something, we didn't get into it a lot, but so I won't say anything particular, but he was saying that the media was really oppressive towards Nader's campaign.
Yeah.
That is huge. Again, we didn't get into huge details on it, so I don't want to be like, well, here's what's happening with the media or anything. But you should get involved in your politics so you can see what's really happening and who's really running the country.
Right.
Which I would say, in my humble opinion, is a lot to do with the media. The media has a lot of more control, and businesses. Businesses, media,
large corporations,
big corporations,
pushing
big
money around.
government.
Yeah.
Those people are really running our country, and it should be us. We, the people, should be running our country. And I think we have to take kind of control and be part of campaigns and understand what's really happening in order for that to happen.
People say, I hate politics. I hate dealing with politics. Well, yeah, nobody likes it. But if you want to see that change, you got to be a part of it. Yep. You got to be part of that change. And it's a fight. It's not an easy thing, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah.
So be the change you want to see in the world.
Be the change you want to see. I love that. You're cool
It's
guy.
a tear to my eye. It's for real, though.
Yeah, for real, guys. Okay, so again, we're going to be probably talking about politics more this year. Last year, we had a request for it. We did one thing on it.
Yeah.
This year, we'll probably be talking about it a few more
Good
times.
feedback.
Especially, it's a campaign year. But when you have conversations with people this year about who you're voting for, remember that they aren't against you.
Right.
And remember that you aren't against them, even if you are on opposing sides. We're all in this together. I think every good American believes in freedom and justice. And the other side, the higher ups, want us to not believe that.
Right.
They want us to see the other side as an enemy.
They want us to fight.
Yeah.
And that political conversation you end up having, it can bear fruit or not.
Yeah.
It's not going to bear fruit if you see that person as the enemy.
Yep.
It will bear fruit if you find more things that you can agree on than disagree on, because I bet you that's the case.
Yeah.
Hey Joel, hey Daniel, I just got a quick question. I'm currently planning a rebrand on my channel and would just like to know how to set up a cohesive rebrand across not just my channel, across social media platforms as well.